For this lesson, we're doing Module 5, Lesson 17. On the front page, you'll notice there's two questions, Question B and Question D. We're going to start with Question D. Question B I'm going to have you complete at the end. So to start with D, we have 1 whole subtract 5/8. So as we've learned with subtraction, we can only subtract if we have a common denominator. So both my denominators are going to need to be 8. So I'm just going to set up what I have written so far. Now, I have 1 whole. So if I have a denominator 8, I need to think about what 1 whole would be as a denominator 8. So if I have 1 equals how many pieces out of 8? If we want to think about this as a tape diagram, if I drew a tape diagram, I'm just going to quickly sketch it. 4, 5, 6. So if I quickly drew this and I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces, so my denominator would be 8, and I shaded 8, I would have 1 whole. So 1 whole is equal to 8 out of 8 pieces. You could also think about if you had a whole pizza, you cut it into 8s and you ate the entire pizza, you would have ate 8 out of 8 pizzas. If you have a Hershey bar and you broke it up into 8 pieces and you gave away all 8 pieces or ate all of them, that would be the entire whole. So again, 1 whole, we're going to make our denominator just the same as our numerator if we want to think about it this way. So we have 8 over 8 subtract 5 over 8. Again, I need to keep my denominator the same when I subtract or add. So I keep my denominator 8, and now I just do the subtraction with the numerators. I have 8 take away 5, which is 3. So 1 whole minus 5/8 is equal to 3/8. And I'm going to circle my final answer so we see it. Now for the next one, again, I have a mixed number this time, which is a little bit different. So I have 1 1/5 minus 3/5. Again, I need a common denominator. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up my two denominators, and I can bring down my 3/5 already. Now, right now I have 1 1/5, which is a mixed number, and I need to turn this into a fraction. So again, 1 1/5. When I do this, I take my whole number, which is 1, and I multiply it by my denominator. So 1 times 5 is 5. Now I have to add my numerator, which is 1, so 5 plus 1 is 6. So 1 1/5 is equal to 6/5. Now I just need to subtract. Again, keep my denominator the same, which is 5. I have 6 take away 3, which equals 3. So 1 1/5 minus 3/5 is equal to 3/5. Again, I'm going to circle my final answer so I can see it. For the next one with D, again, I have a mixed number, and I'm subtracting a fraction by it. If I look, 1 1/10 minus 7/10, I've already been given a common denominator, so that's going to make it a little easier. I'm going to start by putting my denominators. Now, 7/10, I'm not going to do anything to it, so I'm just going to write it below. And now I have 1 1/10. So in order to turn this into a fraction, I need to take my whole number 1 times my denominator. So 1 times 10 is 10. Now I need to add in my numerator, which is 1. So 10 plus 1 is 11. Now I have two fractions and I need to subtract. First thing I want to do is write down my denominator because that is not going to change, which is 10. If I didn't have the same denominator, I wouldn't be able to subtract yet, but I do. Now I need to subtract my two numerators, 11 take away 7, which is 4. So 1 1/10 minus 7/10 is equal to 4/10. And I'm going to circle it because this is my answer. Notice I do all the work below, but I always go back up to the original subtraction equation or subtraction question, and I write my answer. Now, we're going to go back to B for a minute. We're going to talk about B. So I'm going to start with, and I'm just going to set this up, 15/8, and I'm going to start with, say, 7/8 below. With 7/8, I'm going to do an addition problem. When 15/8, I'm going to do a subtraction problem. Just going to set it up. Now, I'm going to use my other two numbers to figure this out. So I have 15/8 take away. So say if we take away a whole, 8/8, keep my denominator at 8. Now, we'll have questions like this sometimes, so you'll be given 3 sets of fractions, and you'll have to set up an equation or a addition or subtraction sentence that makes sense. So we have 15/8. We're going to take away 8/8. 15 take away 8 is 7, so we get 7/8. So if we look, we've used all our numbers. We started with 15/8, and I know I gave that to you. We got 7/8 as an answer, and we used 8/8 in the middle, so it would work. Now for the bottom one, we have 7/8. We're going to need to add something to it to get to one of these other answers. So if we want to think about it, if we look which one is our biggest is 15/8. So we have 7/8 plus, we need to add some fraction to get to 15/8. Well, I know my denominator is going to be 8, and I need to think 7 plus what equals 15? The answer is 8. So I've used 8/8. So 7/8 plus 8/8 equals 15/8. Again, if I want to check it, here's my 15/8 at the end. I've used 7/8 at the beginning and 8/8 here. Again, whenever you get a question like this and you have to set up an addition and a subtraction sentence, you can just use the parts you have. The big thing to remember is when we're turning whole numbers into fractions, keep the denominator the same, and you can think about matching the numerator, or you can just think about it in real life terms as if you were thinking about pieces of a candy bar, parts of a pizza. If you were thinking about a tape diagram, how many would be shaded if you had the whole shaded? So we're going to continue working on this tomorrow. Again, also look at our mixed numbers, how we turn those, where I've just started, how we turn those back into fractions.